Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Priest in the Hot Seat podcast. I'm Tom Simmons, and today I have a special guest in my office. We have dear Margaret. Margaret Thomas is joining me tonight, and we're going to talk about some fun things that I know you're going to find interesting. Well, what do you say we get started?
Okay.
Hi, Margaret.
Hello.
Now, Margaret, you've been here at St. Peter's since 2022.
That's right.
You came at a time that was very critical in my life and a time that was critical in your life, too. What was going on in your life at that time?
Well, in my life, my husband had died a few months earlier before I came in March of 22. And my son had invited me to come live here. And I'd been in Florida for 45 years. So once I decided, it took about maybe 2 days. And then I said, yes, I would come. And the next morning, I got a call from someone to buy my house. And I said, sold. And then the next week, I'm up here. So I left everything. I left the rest of my family. I left my home. I left my church. I left everything. But I never looked back because... like Lot.
You don't want to look back.
It wasn't supposed to look back because it was going to be new. He was going to do all new things. And then for you to be going through a hard time at that time.
I was going through the divorce.
Yeah. And for God to send me here to St. Peter's was unusual. Because I had not been in a denominational church for 40 years. So, but when he says go, you go. So whatever his purpose was, this was where I was supposed to be. And it was such a loving place for me at a time when I needed it. Yeah. So whatever I brought with me for you, it was multiplied many times over for me. By the love I received from the people here at St. Peter's, which helped me heal. So it's been really a wonderful experience, and I've loved every minute of it.
And Margaret, I found during that time that your love, the love that you gave, your wisdom, your spiritual insight, you were really very well positioned to minister to me during that time.
Right.
And I can definitely see how God has used you in my life.
You.
It's been...
I just want to say yes when I'm supposed to say yes and go when I'm supposed to go and stay put when I'm supposed to stay put.
Those are excellent principles for walking with Jesus, aren't they?
Yes. Walk in the Spirit, not in the flesh.
Yes. Now, tonight I want to talk about God healing people. Mm-hmm. I've been studying the Sermon on the Mount, getting ready to do a little series on the Sermon on the Mount that'll be coming up. And I was so struck to read those first 4 chapters of Matthew's Gospel. And just before Jesus sits down to teach in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew tells us this: Jesus went throughout all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and curing every disease and every sickness among the people. So his fame spread throughout all Syria. So we're talking north up to like Turkey. We're covering the map here, up throughout all Syria, and they brought him all the sick, those who were afflicted with various diseases and pains, people possessed by demons or having epilepsy or afflicted with paralysis, and he cured them. And great crowds followed him from Galilee, from the Decapolis. Now we're getting east of the Sea of Galilee, like over toward Iraq, Jerusalem, Judea, that's from the south, down toward Jordan, which is further to the east, down toward Arabia. I mean, we're talking a big piece of geography. And Matthew is recording that there must have been thousands of sick people. And what's so striking is how Jesus, according to Matthew, who is an eyewitness of all this, healed them all. He was announcing God's kingdom, breaking into this world, fulfilling all those promises from the Old Testament. And with that kingdom coming, it's like flowers were sprouting up on barren land, barren, dry ground, flowers everywhere, healings everywhere. Now, I know you have some experience of healing power from our Lord Jesus. And so I'd like to talk with you about some of those stories tonight.
It's been really interesting, and I'm going to start at the beginning. But I think the main basis for how I feel about this is that when I first came to the Lord again after all those years in 1981, when I picked up the Bible out of the turmoil of a wasted life for a few years, I said, I'm going to believe everything in this book.
You just made that decision before opening it.
Yes, right. Before opening it.
Yes.
I said, I'm going to believe every single thing in this book because this is your word, God.
Yeah.
And I have to say, from that moment on, he must have given me a gift of faith because I've never doubted that he could do anything. So I can understand how people have such a hard time sometimes thinking that God can heal them or heal a friend or a family member because that's part of who we are. But I think for me it was because I said that to him before I ever opened his book and started to become a Christian and surrendered my life to him. I didn't just say, I believe in you. I said, I'm giving you my life.
Okay.
My life is yours. And so I think from that moment on, he has allowed me to have that faith, not only for myself, but for other people too. So when I pray, I'm praying from a point of victory. And I'm praying from that point of the faith that's already there. So I'm going to start. I have to go back to before I even became back to Jesus a Christian in 1981. In 1980, my 12-year-old son all of a sudden had a 3-hour seizure, and they couldn't stop it, and he was in school. So they put him in an ambulance, and we had to drive 70 miles to Memphis, to Le Bonheur Children's Hospital. So when we got there, they treated him, they gave him a spinal, all of that, and they sent him home. Well, it didn't get better, it got worse. One night I found him in the bathroom with his underwear on top of his clothes in the middle of the night, and he didn't know who he was. So whatever was happening, we had to get help right away. So the next day I'd made an appointment, but I took him to school. And that's when he had the 3-hour seizure. And they took him to the hospital. Well, they came out and told me that he didn't make it, that he had died.
Wow. So you were in the waiting room.
So I'm sitting there, right. And so, I'm starting to cry. But all of a sudden, almost instantly, I could hear all these bells and sirens going off in the hospital. And for some reason, there was a doctor who did not give up. So whatever he did to him, he never woke at that point. I mean, he was on a breathing machine and all that, but they brought him back enough where he was in ICU for almost 2 months, and he was in a coma. Wow. And I would say, what's going to happen when he wakes up? And they said, we don't know what's going to happen. He could be like a vegetation state, or we just don't know.
You just never know.
So we lived in that place for a long time. And finally he came out of the ICU. He didn't know who we were. He couldn't walk. He could talk, but he didn't know what anything was. It was like everything was a blank. So I'm sitting in this room one day, and I look up, and this man dressed in a brown suit, a shiny brown suit, and his wife, they were like in their 40s. They come into the room, and she's got on a dress down to her ankles and her hair up in a bun and no makeup. And at that point, I didn't really understand, where did they come from? I did not know them. And they said, "May we pray for your son?" Well, I hadn't been to church in a long time. But I said, "Yes, of course, please." Well, they didn't stand around the bed and hold hands and say a few prayers. They were on their knees on that hard floor for a very long time. And then they just left.
Were they praying audibly, or was it silent prayer?
Pardon?
Was it silent prayer, or are they praying out loud?
I could barely hear them.
Okay.
They weren't like playing really loud.
Yeah.
They were speaking out loud, but I couldn't tell what they were saying. But anyway, he went home the next day.
Your son did?
Yeah.
So them praying had the effect of bringing him out of...
Well, he wasn't going to be going home for a long time. He couldn't even walk, but he could walk. And he went home the next day. Now, we spent a long time, I had to teach him how to walk again, how to talk again, how to read again. We started over.
Yeah.
And I don't know, they have rehab now. I don't know if they had it then, but I was rehab.
Yes.
But for God, he sent those people I'd never met and never seen before. And he could have done it without sending anyone. But he wanted me to know that through prayer, this happened. That's what I think this was about. And here I had been without him for a long time. So as circumstances led me to Florida. And then that next year is when I accepted him really as Lord of my life.
So your son getting
Savior.
healed tipped you over into that.
The healing.
That confidence.
Yes, this healing
trust.
miracle is what brought me back and my children. So that was the real beginning of it. Okay. And so then after I moved here, I've seen many things happen since that time. But since I've been here at St. Peter's, there have been some things that have happened. And involving my grandson, one of my grandsons in Florida, they had found a huge tumor in his prostate that was much larger than a golf ball. And he had known that it was there, but he's young. He was scared. He doesn't go to doctors. So he ignored it. And so it was not a good thing by the time they x-rayed it. So there he was going back in. They x-rayed it. They thought he was going back in for another x-ray and for a biopsy. So when of course, we call in the prayer teams and we're praying and everything. So we
were praying here.
Yeah, yes. And so when he went back for that next x-ray, it was gone. It was not even there. There was no sign of it, as if it never existed.
And that was just this past summer?
Yes, that was like last summer.
Yes.
So that was amazing.
Now, I remember...
But I wasn't even surprised.
Yes.
That was like...
yeah.
It was like, well, I was happy, but I wasn't surprised that it was not there. It did not even dawn on me that, how could this happen? It was just like, I was excited and happy for him. And everybody just went on with their life.
We did, yeah. It's like, okay, chalk
and that's
another one
how
up.
I feel about miracles. I think we should expect them.
Yes.
That's where we live. That's who we are. The same spirit that lives in us is the spirit that raised Jesus from the dead. There's no reason we can't expect miracles in our lives.
The power of the resurrection at work in our lives.
Yeah.
Now, when you first came, another one of your grandsons had a terrible tumor. Was it a tumor in his brain?
No, it was a stroke.
It was a stroke in his brain.
Yeah.
And he was a soldier at the time.
Yes.
Tell us about him. What's his name?
His name is Trevor. And that was just This is unbelievable what
young
God
man
did
having a
here.
stroke.
Yeah, listen. Everybody at St. Peter's prayed. I called in every prayer warrior I knew from all over the country. This was in 2022, and he had just left basic training where he was the Iron Soldier. So he won that honor of Iron Soldier, which means you're the strongest, you're the best. That's who he was, the Iron Soldier, and he was one of the top 12 graduates of 800 guys. Out of that, he was in fire control, which they do locate the enemy with all of the computers and then send in the big guns and all that. But that's who he was. Then he got promoted where he was in charge of his little battalion or whatever it was. He got shipped to Germany. So while he was in Germany one day, he had just come in from their practice out in the field. And he went to the gym, and he started lifting weights, and he had a stroke. And it was the kind of stroke where it just exploded. So he was rushed to the hospital immediately with a 20% chance to live. So part of the miracle was my son and daughter-in-law didn't have passports. Remember that? Well, within 2 hours, they had a passport. To go to Germany. Yep. So within 2 hours, they had a passport. And then within a few more hours, they were in the State Department. And they were on a plane to Germany.
Yes.
That's unheard of, that the Army would move that fast. And so there they were. They were there for him because he was in such bad shape. Yeah. So the doctor told them in front of Trevor, even though he was supposedly in a coma or whatever, that he had a 20% chance to live. And if he did live, he would never walk again, and he would never talk again, and he would never be able to do anything. And his mother said the tears were coming down his cheeks, that even though he couldn't respond, he heard that.
He was hearing it.
So this is when all the prayer warriors, after I told everyone that, really the prayer warriors went into high gear, that's for sure. So he stayed in Germany. He had a brain operation in Germany. And he had 2 brain operations in Germany, one right after the other. And then they put him on a plane and shipped him to Walter Reed, where he had another brain operation. Now, this is he's had 3 brain operations within like 3.5 months.
Yes.
So I got to see him at Walter Reed, and I can't even imagine having to go through operations like that. That young.
They removed a large part of his skull.
He was missing. He didn't have... Part of his head was gone.
Yes.
So they removed part of his head, and he only had like half of a head. And so we called him Football Head. Listen, it's
slightly
tough.
lopsided.
You got to be tough.
You got to laugh.
You have to be tough to be in our family. So football head.
You remember Rufus Womble, right?
Yes.
He had a thing that he called Rizotherapy. It's healing through laughter.
Yes.
And an old football head could probably laugh at himself.
And he would laugh.
And that's a big part of getting well.
Yes, he would laugh. So anyway, I went to see him at Walter Reed. And I said, may I pray for you? And he said, yes. He's a little Baptist boy. So I prayed for him, and he still wasn't talking. And so we went to lunch, and we left him there, and we came back, only I didn't go back to the hospital. But when they went in, he said, "Where's Mimi?" So those were his first words.
Okay.
After the prayer, "Where's Mimi? Where's Waldo?" But anyway.
Mimi's kind of proud about that.
Yeah. Yes. So he stayed at Walter Reed for a while, and then they sent him to Tampa, where he had another brain operation. And this is where they made him a skull. And that's when he started his therapy as far as trying to walk. And I have those videos that I showed you of the process he went through. Unbelievable.
A serious beating.
Yes.
The physical therapy is brutal.
Yes. But the strength that he had and
Yes.
the prayers that have gone out for him, you could just see it. In fact, the video is to the song about miracles.
Yes.
You know, it's a wonderful video. But so he had that done, and now he's been at home for a while. He's in his 4th year of working with Wounded Warriors. He does a lot for Wounded Warriors. He can walk the 5K, which is great for a guy, they said,
Never
but
walk
never
again.
walk again. He drives now. That's just within the last year. So what God did is just absolutely amazing. And I remember telling you, I believe that God is going to heal him an arm and a leg at a time. And that's exactly what happened. It wasn't all at once. It was first his leg and then his arm. And, of course, all the time working on his head. But now he lives in a house with his sister, works with Wounded Warriors, does all of the stuff. He surfs with Wounded Warriors. He went surfing with Wounded Warriors. He has a wonderful, full life. And will probably continue to work with them for a while. So I think those are pretty outstanding, amazing things that God has done for my family. And I just, prayer and more prayer. And you keep praying. And you never give up. So that's, I think, what I would, put out to people. Just continue to talk to God. Continue to trust him and pray.
And gather the prayer warriors.
Yeah.
It's so good to be part of a praying church, to be surrounded by people who believe and take that belief, put it to work with hours of prayer, like persistent prayer. And sometimes it can be very discouraging. You're not seeing the results you want to see, but you keep going anyway.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when you do get to see those results.
Right. When we were talking before, I said, is it okay if I ask you a question? Because this is a question that's been on my heart because of friends that I have who are going through things. But, Father Tom, why does God heal some people and not heal others?
That's a good question, and it's a question that I think all of us ask, and it's not just a theoretical question, because we all suffer.
Yes.
We get sick. We have people in our lives that we love who are sick and die, and you can feel so helpless in those times.
Yeah.
And I think, and so it's like one of the deep, hard questions that doesn't go away.
Right.
Everybody struggles with this. And, I think my mind goes immediately to the Apostle Paul. He's got a lot of hard miles on him, and he suffered a great deal due to his calling. So he got beaten within an inch of his life by people who wanted to shut him up. He was shipwrecked and was bitten by a poisonous serpent and managed to survive it, to weather it. I'm sure he had his aches and pains. I mean, you think of him sitting in a dank prison cell for months at a time, no accommodations. You're sitting on a hard floor, trying not to share your food with the rats that are in there with you. And Paul shared a very intimate story from his own life, his own experience of suffering a thorn in the flesh, an ailment that caused him great suffering, that impaired his work. And those who have been sick, those who have been through cancer or suffered the result of a horrible accident, and anybody who is on the path toward their own death or who's walked with loved ones who are, know what it's like. And Paul said that he prayed 3 times to be delivered from this. And so he kept that persistent prayer going. And the answer kept coming back, no. No, Lord, I thought Jesus healed everybody in the Sea of Galilee and the Decapolis and Syria, Jerusalem, Judea, and Jordan, beyond the Jordan. Like the whole geographical area, Jesus healed everybody. But what about me? And what Paul learned through that faith testing ordeal, that loss and suffering, was that God's strength is perfected in our weakness. And so there are lessons that we learn. We learn to trust God. We learn to accept the limitations of our fallen state, of our humanity. We learn to accept the fallenness of the world around us because we share in its suffering and ultimate death. And, there are a lot of people who say you just need to have faith and you don't ever want to speak any words that would indicate that you don't believe that you're going to be healed, you're going to receive your healing, you need to claim your healing. And yet, we all die.
Yeah.
Everyone is going to die from something that is not going to be healed. God's going to say, I'm sorry, no, not this time. And so we need to learn to embrace him through that suffering and the refinement of our faith, of our character, uncovering and freeing us from harmful assumptions that we hold in our heart and mind for our whole life. Ultimately, we are refined through fire, and sometimes that involves not being healed of the things that we would love to be relieved of now, yesterday, so that we can get back to the work that we love to do, the service that we would love to give to God. But I can't because of dementia. I can't because my cancer diagnosis, whatever it is. God wants to show what it's like to be brought through in the arms of Jesus. And ultimately, every prayer that we ever pray is going to be answered. And you referred to Paul's statement there early in Romans chapter 8, where he says that the Spirit gives us hope. It's the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead.
Yes.
Will give life to our mortal body.
Yes.
We get tastes of that through healing power, miracles in our lives. Sometimes, but sometimes God has other things for us to learn through that. And ultimately, all those prayers are answered when we rise like Jesus did on Easter, when we see ourselves made new as he was. You see Jesus on Easter, you see your own destiny, and that is the healing of the body and the soul, the character, the deep person of who you are, finally fully crafted into the likeness of his son, Jesus.
That's wonderful. Thank you. What a good answer. Thank you. And we have talked a lot about physical healing, but one of the things closest to my heart, and one of the things that he said, this is why I'm coming, is the healing of the broken hearts. And we could spend a whole session talking about that.
I would love
but
to.
That's that's why he came.
Yes.
And if
To bind up the brokenhearted.
Yes.
And I got to experience that. That's one of the gifts that you brought into my life in 2022 and 3.
And he has done that for me and so many other people.
Yes.
You could spend the whole thing on the brokenhearted and how he deals with us and helps us and heals us like that. There's so much. It's not just physical healing.
Yeah.
It's all of the other things that he brings. And look how blessed we are to have him.
Yes. Well, so let's talk to the people that are watching us. So here you are. You've listened to Margaret's stories. You've listened to my answer to her question, and she just raised the possibility of another one of these conversations to talk about healing for the brokenhearted. Is that something you'd like us to talk about in another session? We got the little comment section below. What you can do is just go down there and say, yes, Tom, yes, Margaret, let's do one of those sessions. All right. All right. Well, let's end on that note. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Folks, stay tuned. This is exciting stuff.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.